Hey, what's up, everyone? This is Pat Flynn from smartpassiveincome.com. You're about to watch a slideshow presentation and listen to the audio file from my opening keynote at FINCON13. That's the financial blogger conference that just happened this past year in St. Louis. Now, I don't have the video. Unfortunately, it got lost in some corrupt data, so I don't have that for you. But this is sort of the next best thing. So it's actually going to be like you're sitting in the audience, and you won't see me move around. You'll see some images of me on stage, but you will see the slides progress as the content moves along. There are moments of the presentation, especially in the beginning, where I don't have slides, and that was on purpose because I wanted people to focus on me. You'll hear me talk a lot about the conference. Because I opened the conference, I wanted to really connect with the audience about what FinCon was all about and my experience going to FinCon in 2011, 2 years prior. So you'll hear a bunch of stories about that, and then I get into the content, which is going to help you understand how to leave a good first impression on your website for brand new visitors, which is really, really important. Now, I'll preface all this by telling you exactly how I got on stage, because you won't be able to see it, and this is why not having the video is so devastating, because I had sort of choreographed something that happened at the beginning to really make an impact in a huge sort of first impression, something memorable for people. So I'm just going to tell you what happened, and then when you sort of listen to the audio, you'll get an idea of what's going on, because you're going to hear a lot of random sounds, and you're probably like, well, what the heck is it? Well, let me tell you. I'm sitting in the back of the room. JD Roth from Get Rich Slowly is talking. He's the MC of the event, and then he calls my name. He says, Pat Flynn, and then I come up from the back of the room, and I run up on stage. I run up to the stage, and as I'm climbing the steps onto the stage, on the last step, I trip, and I fall flat on my face, and the mic falls off. You're going to hear a lot of feedback, and then all of a sudden, you're going to hear this sound. It sort of sounds like zoom, and then all of a sudden, you'll hear the music that played while I was going up play in reverse. And what I'm actually doing at this time is I push myself up off the stage, I go backwards down the stairs, and I reverse sort of run back to where I was sitting before I was announced. And I sit back in the same position I was before. And then you'll hear me announced again, and then I do the same exact thing. I go up on stage, and this time I don't fall. And you're going to hear the first words I say after that, and you'll hear the crowd reaction. Again, this was all about leaving a good first impression. So I hope you enjoy. Here's the audio. Again, I apologize, I don't have the video, but this is the next best thing. You're going to see a few images of myself on stage while I'm speaking, and there are no slides available until sort of a little bit further into the presentation. I hope you enjoy. Thank you so much. I appreciate you.
Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Pat Flynn.
Hey, this is Pat chiming in really quick. As you heard, I just fell on stage. You heard the feedback, and I have to say, I practiced long and hard to make sure I got that fall right. I had read a lot of things on the internet about how to fall properly so it looks realistic, and also fall properly so I don't hurt myself. So I did that. The mic fell off. The feedback was actually just a nice little accident that came along with it. And I actually looked over into the audience for a split second after I had fallen, like some people were sort of half standing up. Some people had their hands over their mouths and were actually kind of worried, which is pretty crazy. But you'll hear what happens when I sort of push myself off, and you'll hear the music start up again, and I start going in reverse. You'll hear the crowd reaction, and so I just wanted to chime in and let you know, just in case you forgot exactly what was going on. That's what happened. All right, let's continue.
Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Pat Flynn. If there's one thing I want you to take away from this talk, it's this. First impressions matter. They matter because we don't get a second chance to make a first impression. You can't rewind a first time. There are no do-overs or mulligans when it comes to the first time anybody experiences anything. And that first impression you make is so important, vital, because it directly influences everything that happens from that point forward. How people interact with us, how people experience our brand and what we have to offer, how people feel about us, think about us, talk about us. Before anybody reads your content, before anybody subscribes to your newsletter, clicks on any links, buys any of your products, before you can teach anybody anything, before you can make a difference, you have to make a good first impression. Before you can make a difference, you have to make a good first impression. What kind of first impression are you making online? By the end of this conference, I'm going to help you figure that out and give you the tools and resources you need to make the best first impression you can make. And by the end of this conference, you're going to be well equipped to make the biggest difference that you can make. And that's why we're all here, right? We want to make a big difference, not just in the lives of our readers, but our own lives as well. And I promise you, the bigger the difference you can make in the life of your audience, the more reward will come your way. Now, as I catch my breath, and before I start talking more about first impressions, I just want to say it feels great to be back at FinCon. Are you guys excited to be at FinCon? I'm excited. I know you guys are excited. You know how I know you're excited? Because I've been following the hashtag. And I've been reading the messages on Facebook, and there's a few messages and tweets I want to share with you from some of you out there. And this first one comes from Smart Money Chick. She said, this was actually on March 5th, when tickets went on sale. She said, I woke up giddy like a schoolgirl. It's actually how I woke up this morning. She said, FinCon13 tickets go on sale in like an hour. Yay. Here's one from Agatha. She said, who's ready for a FinCon13 photo op? At Empowered Dollar, remember the 80 shots from FinCon 12? Of course, I have a picture to go along with this. And I want that boombox, but that's awesome. Here's one from Travis. He said, who has 2 thumbs and is excited to leave for FinCon tomorrow? This guy. Here's one from Eric. This isn't really a thing about excitement. It's just a tip for himself. He said, smartest thing I can do. Put off dating until after FinCon. Not like last year with a new girlfriend who was crazy. And ladies, I talked to Eric just to confirm he doesn't have a girlfriend right now, so. And this is my favorite. This is one from Scott. He said, is it bad that I'm more excited about FinCon than I was for my family's trip to Disney last year? And then Lance said, not if you don't tell your family. To which Scott replied, oops. So I'm curious, who is here for the first time? This is your very first FinCon. Raise your hand. Wow. Welcome. Put your hands down. Who's here for a second time? This is your second FinCon. Sweet. And third time. You've been here since the beginning of all FinCons. Nice. Now, if you had anything to do with putting this conference together, anything, you're a volunteer, raise your hand up super high so the rest of us can just thank you for the work that you've done. Especially you, PT. I mean, you are seriously changing lives here by bringing us all together. Not just our lives, but the lives of those who we serve through our websites, too. Over the next few days, you're going to learn so much. You're going to be incredibly motivated. We're going to have a lot of fun. And you're going to be around some amazing people who you will miss once this is over. Like, I'm already sad thinking about saying bye to you on Sunday. So I'm not going to think about that right now. But it's true. I mean, and the reason for that is because the financial blogger community, more than any other community that I know online, is really a family, a tight family. And FinCon is sort of our family reunion. except it's one we actually want to go to. And if you're here for the first time, you probably you are sort of feeling that and sensing that already. And if you're back again, I mean, you wouldn't have come back if you felt otherwise. Now, back in 2011, I had the opportunity to go to the very first FinCon in Chicago. And it just so happened that that was my very first opportunity to get up on a stage and speak in front of a crowd. So of course, leading up to the event, I was getting a little nervous. Okay, actually, I was really nervous. Well, PT calls me up 2 weeks before the event, and he says, "Hey, Pat, we're going to put you on last. You're going to be the last speaker on the last day, right before everybody goes home. Cool? Thanks." And I was like, cool. And really what I was thinking was, oh man, I can ruin this entire conference for everybody. Like, maybe there wouldn't be another FinCon if I did so poorly. But for those of you who were there, thank you, because you made me feel incredibly comfortable up there. And it was an amazing experience. And I guess I did well enough to get invited to speak again in Denver, but I couldn't make it, because my wife was pregnant at the time, and we actually had our baby daughter on the first day of FinCon last year. And I said this community was like family, but I don't think my immediate family would have been too happy if I wasn't there for the birth of my daughter. So thank you for understanding. And here we are, FinCon13, St. Louis. My wife's at home taking care of the kids. She's awesome. I don't think she's pregnant. And it's been 2 years since my first time on stage. And since then, I've gone on to speak dozens of times at over a dozen different events. And you know what? A lot of people ask me, "Hey Pat, out of all the conferences you've been to and all the events you've attended, which one is your favorite?" And it never takes me long to reply, FinCon. FinCon is my favorite conference. And the response I usually get from the people who ask me is, FinCon? What is that? Is that for sharks or something? Like, FinCon, get it? That joke went way better than I thought it was going to go. But it's true though, like people on the outside, they don't know what FinCon's about or who it's for or what we do, but for those of us who are here, and for those of us in the financial blogger community, this is our thing. It's special to us. And so when I got invited by PT to do the opening keynote for FinCon13, my very first keynote ever, I was incredibly excited and thankful. And so I had some time to reflect on, why I was so excited to come back and why I was so excited to get back on stage and come back and speak to you guys. And it brought back a very specific memory from FinCon 11 that I had. Now this memory was not JD's keynote and how amazing that was. He was talking about the power of storytelling, and he actually brought a Klingon from Star Trek on stage with him, who was like speaking in this Klingon language, and apparently what this Klingon said to him was, "Your mother has a sweaty forehead." But it was very memorable. The memory was not that one panel with the payday loans guy who was pitching to us why payday loans were awesome. I swear, the tweets that were going around when that was happening were the most entertaining and epic tweets I'd ever read, still to this day. And the memory wasn't Ramit's party. He held a party on Saturday night at that event, and that one guy who totally didn't look like he could dance, but after a couple Kool-Aids, he was crushing it on the dance floor. He was breakdancing. So I'm really curious to see which one of you is a closet breakdancer, because I'm going to find you, and we're going to battle. And the memory wasn't even my time on stage, as amazing as that was. The specific memory I'm talking about actually happened a day before the event, when I was rolling up to the hotel, the Marriott in Schaumburg, and as I was going into the hotel, there's revolving doors, and even before the doors stopped spinning, I was greeted by two people who I'd never met before, who extended their hand out to me and said, "Welcome to FinCon." And all of a sudden, PT comes around the corner with this huge smile. He's like, "Dude, Pat, it's so good to see you. Is there anything we can do for you? We just want to make you feel comfortable." He did that handshake where it's like, "Yo, what's up, man?" and pulls you in and gives you a hug. And it was a little extra effort from you, so I appreciated that. And then I went over to the registration table, and I was greeted with warm smiles there. I checked in, I got my badge, and I actually brought my badge with me from that event. And I wanted to show it to you. This is a very special badge to me. Right here on the front it says, "Speaker, Pat Flynn, Smart Passive Income." And I thought this was cool because it was the first time I had a badge that actually said speaker on it. And I had been to a lot of conferences before. To see that there was amazing. And then I flip to the back, and it says speaker, Pat Flynn, Smart Passive Income. The name and the blog were on both sides of the name tag. Genius! Because I had been to other conferences before, you know, you'd be like, hey, what's your name, what's your blog? And you'd be like, like you'd get all tangled, like I hated that. And it was already taken care of. And then, what is this inside? I've never seen a schedule. So I always know what's going on and where I need to be. Awesome. And I'm totally not being sarcastic here. This stuff was blowing my mind. Because it's stuff I've always wanted as an attendee before, and here it was already taken care of. And you know what? These small details and the warm welcome that I got there, that was my first impression of FinCon. And that's why it is still my favorite conference. And I remember that day, after being amazed by this badge here, flipping to the back and seeing Sunday, October 2nd, 2011, the very last presentation, right before closing remarks. Proven strategies to stand out of the crowd and take your blog to the next level. That was my presentation. And seeing it there on paper made it very real. And that's when the butterflies started coming back. You know, I started feeling ill. I got really nervous. And I wasn't nervous because I wasn't prepared. I was prepared. I wasn't nervous because I didn't know what to expect. I was nervous because I knew exactly what to expect. An amazing, incredible conference with amazing people. And I just wanted to end it for everyone else the same way it started for me. Again, because of that first impression I had. So that's my FinCon11 story. And, you know, it's been a while since then. A lot has happened. I had another kid. I turned 30. You know, I've built a couple more businesses and blogs. I'm doing like advisory work for companies now, like Lead Pages, which just got $5 million in funding. Like, that's like adult stuff right there. The blog is just exploding, and the podcast. How many of you listen or read the Smart Passive Income podcast? Wow. If your hand is up, I love you. If your hand isn't up, I still love you. So it's okay. And, you know, here we are, FinCon13. Not last this time, first. And so I thought it would be very appropriate of me, since I'm going first, to talk about the importance of first impressions. Because over the next few days, you're going to make a lot of first impressions. And your blog, your website right now is making first impressions. Are they the kind of first impressions you want to make? Because remember, the first impression can be the difference between someone coming to your site and reading your content, exploring what you have to offer, you actually helping a person and changing a person's life, or somebody coming to your site and just going, meh. Like we don't want meh, right? We want, where has this been this whole time? We want love at first sight. Get it, right? So here's what we're going to do. We're going to talk a little bit about first impressions and what's going on and why it's working. So we all know what's happening. And then I'm going to get into some strategies and things you can do to help you make sure you're leaving a great first impression on your website. You guys cool with that? You guys ready to get started? All right. Seven. According to research done at NYU Stern Graduate School of Business, people make decisions about other people within the first 7 seconds of initial contact. Can I trust this person? Are they believable? Do I like them? Do I not like them? Do they look friendly? Should I open up to them? Should I hold back? Is this someone I could do business with potentially? All within the first 7 seconds. And it's all based on that first impression. But can you guess how quickly first impressions and decisions about websites are being made online? Well, let's go to the timer. Here we go. 0.2 of a second. This is based on recent eye tracking research, and Google has confirmed these findings too. It's almost instantaneous, but when you think about it, when you go to a brand new website, you're already making snap decisions and judgments and deciding what to do right as you get there. Is this where I should be? Is it not where I should be? What's standing out to me? Where should I go first? It's almost instantaneous. But the question is why? Why is this happening so fast? Well, actually, it's hardwired in our brains to do this. You see, all day, every day, our brain is constantly filing away information for instantaneous recall. It's sort of like a survival thing, like an evolutionary thing, like, oh, these berries might make me sick. This animal might eat me. This guy looks powerful and dangerous. I'm going to stay away. This guy, not so much. So this stuff like works in the wild. It's working in Hogwarts. And it's working for us today. So when you see something for the first time, your brain is processing it against everything that you've interacted with and experienced ever. And almost immediately, in an instant, your brain is already forming opinions and making decisions for you without even giving you a chance to ask you for your opinion. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a quick little exercise. I'm going to show you two pictures, one after the other, and I want you to think about your first impression of what you see on these pictures. The pictures are two women, and I want you to tell me what you think. Now, I was looking for stock photos for this exercise, and I didn't want to be like, oh, what's your first impression of this guy? So these are actual photographs, so I apologize if the quality isn't as good. So what is your first impression of the woman in this image here? Now let me ask you, is this Travis? Yeah. Oh, you're the two thumbs up guy. Right. Nice. What is your first impression of this woman here, based on what you've seen?
Big smile.
Big smile. How does it make you feel like? Friendly? Okay, great. Loves her kids. Great, thank you. And your name is? Bonnie. Pleasure to meet you. Can I ask you what your first opinion is of the next picture? Do you mind? Okay, here's the next picture. What is your first impression of this woman here? Angry. Good. Tough. Thank you. Well, I have a confession to make. The image, the woman in these two images are the same person. It's actually my mom. So I'm really glad you guys said, relatively kind things about who she was. Thank you. But this is my mom. This is my mom and I when we lived in Connecticut. That's where I was born. I was 1 year old. Apparently we liked haircuts with parts in the middle and the color green. And this is my mom doing demolition work with her fists. And she was approaching 50, the age of 50 at this point. She competed in these brick breaking competitions and stuff. And there were no women's division for that sort of thing. So yeah, don't mess with me, because I'll get my mom on you. But you see how, depending on how you were first introduced to this person, you had completely different thoughts and initial impressions, and that's going to affect potentially how you might behave and feel and think about this person. That's why when I was dating my wife back in the day, I wasn't like, oh yeah, my mom, she breaks bricks with her hands. I probably wouldn't have kids. And this brings me to my very first lesson for you about first impressions, and this is really important. You have the ability to make any kind of first impression that you want to make. It is your blog, it is your website, that is under your control. So the question is, what kind of first impression are you making online right now? Now the problem with this question is that we can't answer this question on our own, because it's purely impossible to get a real first impression of your own stuff, because it's our own stuff, right? And the thing that's crazy about whenever I go to these conferences and things, people say, oh, my blog is this is my blog, but who is that blog really for? Yes, it's our blog because we've authored it, but who is that blog really for? Who should it be for? Your readers. So it's not really your blog, it's for your readers. So what better thing to do than to ask for feedback, primarily from your audience. Now I wouldn't put up a blog post that says, hey everybody, what was your first impression of my site? I mean, you could do that if you'd like. But what I would recommend is contact a few of the more active people on your site, because they're there and they might be super fans and they want to help you out and they're going to leave you their honest opinion. And you might not want to hear what they say, but you have to hear what they say, because it's not your site. Your opinion on what's on your site doesn't matter. It's up to your audience. Or better yet, if you're working at a Starbucks or something and somebody sits next to you, you'd be like, hey, what do you think of this? Actually, don't ask like that. That's completely rude. But excuse me, I'm working on this website. It's a personal finance website. What do you think of this website? I'm trying to improve it. What's your initial impression? That'd be really helpful. What's the worst thing that can happen? They'll say, no, that's not the end of the world. Or better yet, we are all here to help each other, right? Why don't we ask for feedback from each other? There's nothing more important to me than the input from others, the input from my audience, but even more importantly, the input from my peers. I'm in 3 different mastermind groups of 3 to 6 people who meet weekly, and we hold each other accountable, we set goals, and we are completely honest with each other when it comes to each other's business. When we need help, we go to each other. When I need help, I go to them. How many of you are in mastermind groups? Raise your hand if you're in a mastermind group. Cool, a few of you. If you're not in a mastermind group, this is stuff that was talked about in Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. Chapter 10, The Power of the Mastermind. This is real stuff. I would not be where I'm at today without the input that I have from the special members in my mastermind group. And actually, 4 out of the 5 people in one of my mastermind groups are here. Actually, Jamie Tardy, Chad Tresser, and Jeff Rose. We all meet weekly Monday. We all live in completely different parts of the world, or the United States, but we meet on freeconferencecall.com. You can use GoToMeeting. You can use Google Hangouts. So if you're not in a mastermind group now, you are in the perfect place to form one. And like I said earlier, you're going to miss these people. You don't have to miss them quite as much because you can keep in constant contact with them, help each other out, and provide honest feedback for each other. And I'm getting way off tangent here, but it is that important. So I'll tell you what, if you find other people that you can connect with and you create a mastermind group, come find me before Sunday, before we all leave. I would love to help your group get started to show you what it's like and what's structured and how to approach it. Because it means that much to me, and I know it will change a lot of your lives if you do that. So anyway, going back to the filing system in our brain, right? The first impression is often based on the visuals, right? What people see, even before people get to the content. How many of you have ever heard of the phrase "content is king"? Right? We all hear that. Thank you. Yes, it is. Without great content on your site, without unique content, you're not going to stand out. There's no point in being there if there's not great content on your site. However, and my buddy Cliff Ravenscraft from Podcast Answerman said this best. You know what? Content is king. However, design is queen. And sometimes, and I can say this as a married man, sometimes the queen rules the house. So design is queen. So the design and what's on your site and how people experience it based on what they see is very important. And the most important thing to think about when it comes to the design, what is get your free ebook guide to grow your... Okay, I put this in here myself. To demonstrate what a lot of bloggers are doing these days. They're interrupting. People come to your site for a reason, and you're showing them something else. There is a flow, there's a continuity of what happens when people come to your site and when they arrive. And the moment you break that continuity, you're giving them a chance to think. You don't want your visitors to think. You just want them to naturally flow through your site. And the deeper they can get into your site, the more likely they are to stay there. And of course, down the road, the more likely that you are to change their lives, which in turn will help change yours as well. That's the idea here. Now, I'm not saying bad things about pop-ups. I'm just using that as an example of an interruption to the continuity. Pop-ups are great. They can be used to grow your email list like crazy, but a lot of people misuse them and aren't thinking about the conversation that they want to have with their new audience. Now, another way that people are interrupting the conversation are with advertisements. Now, advertisements aren't bad. I use advertisements too, but in specific strategic places. Okay. Nobody wakes up and says, I want to see ads today. Woo! I want to see ads today. Said no one ever. So why are we showing it to them first? Thankfully, we're past those days with those crazy, animated GIFs that are like, refinance your home today. You remember those, right? You don't see those anymore. But they work, and people were putting them on their website and saying, hey, go look at this instead of the content that I spent hours writing. Now, luckily, I checked out a lot of your sites, and the ads are relatively relevant to what the content is on your site. But here's an example. For example, let's say I go to your site to read about Lending Club, right? I'm a member of Lending Club, I love it, but let's say I wasn't. And I go to your site to read about Lending Club, and all of a sudden I see this ad at the top with a bright red button that says learn more, and I'm fighting it already. It's bright, and no, I gotta keep reading about Lending Club. That's what I came there for. So I scroll down a little bit, I'm reading your content, it's good, but then I see this other ad on the side for buying stocks. I'm like, whoa, that's, no, okay. I gotta keep reading about Lending Club, okay, and see how these distractions keep popping up? I came to read about Lending Club, and you're telling me to look at something else. And then all of a sudden, I scroll down and I see this ad for the Spartan race. I'm like, how did that get there? Well, I know exactly how it got there, because I went to the Spartan race site the other day. And there's this thing called retargeting, and you may have experienced this, where you go visit a site, and you leave, and all of a sudden you're seeing ads for it everywhere. It's ninja stuff. You can look it up, retargeting. I'm not going to go into that. But this is what's happening. And look, I came to read about Lending Club, but all this stuff is fighting for my attention. How is this continuing the conversation versus interrupting it, right? So let's say I see one of these ads. I'm like, okay, great, Spartan Race. I was there the other day. This is a sign I got to do it. So I click on that ad, and I'm at the Spartan Race website, and I'm getting pumped because I'm watching this video of people climbing under barbed wire and going through ice baths, and I'm like, sweet, I'm going to sign up. So I sign up and register, and I'm like, oh man, I'm not fit for this. I'm going to go to the gym. So I go to the gym right then and there, and I go 5 days a week, but then I get burned out, and I'm like, man, I spend too much time here. I have 2 kids, I got to be at home. So I ordered an at-home fitness program. And I go through it, and then after 90 days, like, I actually transform. This is actually a real transformation of me after doing an at-home fitness program. Not the Hulkamania one, but I did go. And apparently the workout I did took the hair off my chest and made me 5 shades lighter somehow. But anyway, I'm ready to go to the race. So I go to the race, and I start, and everything's going good until I come up to the firewall. This is an actual obstacle in the Spartan race. And I'm like, no way. So I start to walk away. I'm like, forget it. I'm not going to complete the race. And then I actually run into a real Spartan. And he says, you will finish this race. And I'm like, no, dude, this is like the hardest thing I've ever done. And he gives me this look. I'm like, fine, so what should I do? He's like, go. So I get pumped, and I run to the fire obstacle, and I do a flip over it. And then I land, and I finish the race. And I'm so proud of myself, but where's your website that I initially went on? I don't even remember. And I may or may not go back. I don't know. But this has nothing to do with Lending Club, except potentially paying for medical bills. Or how about this conversation? A lot of us know this website, Mr. Money Mustache, one of my favorite personal finance sites. So I go to his site to read about Lending Club, and what do I see? A picture of Lending Club, confirming that I'm in the right spot. And there's a test I like to do when I go on websites to see what they're trying to tell me to look at. I call it the squint test. So I look and I squint at Mr. Money Mustache's site, and all I can see is that Lending Club picture and the content. That big white box, perfect. Nothing else really distracting me. So I keep reading down his website, and I see these amazing charts, and he's very transparent. Obviously, I can connect with what he's talking about here. And then at the bottom, he has a call to action that says, if you are interested in starting your own experience with Lending Club, there's an ad. For what? Lending Club. You're continuing the conversation here. But there are things on the sidebar. Well, what's this? Oh, as featured in NPR, Forbes, CNN Money, MSN. This guy knows what he's talking about. I'm going to go to Lending Club and click on it. And boom, after a year, I'm making 13% annual returns. And I'm like, man, that was such a sweet deal. Where did I get? Oh, yeah, that was Mr. Money Mustache's site. I'm going to go send him an email and thank him because he's made me a lot of money. And anybody who I know who's interested in Lending Club, I'm going to send them here. I don't remember where I got the Spartan race thing, but I remember what happened here because he helped me, and he showed his experience, and he was very honest and transparent. And this sequence, the continuity, that's what I'm talking about here. The continuity. Are you taking away from the conversation and breaking it up, or are you adding to it? And you know what? I love Mr. Money Mustache. It's a great website. But let's be honest here, it's not the most beautiful website in the world. And don't worry, I asked him permission to say this, so. It's not, but it works. And he continues the conversation that people have and gives people the information and supports their purpose for being there. So you got to stop worrying about having the perfect website. Just have a website that works and continues the conversation. That's the number one problem I see, people worrying too much about theme and all that stuff. I mean, worry about the content, but how people flow into your website as well. So next, let's talk about navigation. Now, I asked my audience 2 years ago, about 100 people, took a small sample, and I asked them, hey, what was your first impression when you came on my website the first time? And what I got was, Pat, I heard so many things about you. I remember hearing about you from a friend, and I went to your site, and it was just very overwhelming. There was a lot of information. I didn't know where to start. So I left. Like 25% of the people said they had to come back because they just kept seeing me everywhere. And then they got into the content, and that's when they got hooked. But that initial first impression was poor because I was just confusing people. It's like, let's say, for example, you're introducing your blog to somebody, you just have it all printed out on paper. You're basically throwing all the pieces of paper in front of their face and say, go read my blog. There's no conversation there. They get to a point and then they start thinking, well, where do I go? What do I do next? And the moment they start thinking that, a lot of times that next step is leaving because they're not sure they're in the right spot. So the idea here is you have to give your audience a clear starting point. Every blog needs a clear starting point. So that's exactly what I did. I listened to my readers and listeners, and I took action. So what did I do? If you go to the homepage of smartpassiveincome.com, you might notice this big green box at the top. It says, don't know where to start? Click here. And when they go to this page, what they see is a landing page with a quick video and an introduction of myself, and then some quick definitions, and then 3 posts that will help them get started. Like if I were to meet you in the hallway and you told me about your blog, and I was like, that sounds interesting, where should I start? What would you say? If I asked you, where should I start on your site? Do you have an answer for that? Would you say, just go to the homepage. Okay, will I know what to do? Is it obvious what to do when I get there? Yes or no? Or would you say, just read my first article and go from there? I'm not going to read 167 different articles. I want to know what's in it for me right now. Where should I start? So this page that I send people to after they click here is actually the 3rd most visited page on my website. The first one is the home page. The second one, interestingly enough, is my income reports page. The third one is this getting started page. But the getting started page is actually the 2nd most profitable page because there's a clear conversation there and a call to action to take some of your first steps, which are like sign up for hosting and all that stuff, which is in there. Oops, wasn't supposed to go forward yet, but actually we can do that. Okay, good. So a lot of people told me that this picture resonated with people when they got to my website. That this was the first thing they saw. And it's put there to be seen. But one of my readers put it best when she said, you know what, Pat? A picture is worth 1,000 words, and that picture of you tells me 1,000 things about you in less than a second. So if you want to leave a first impression, if you want to talk about who you are, even before your readers start reading any of your content, show images and pictures. And this sort of goes along, and even more important is the fact that they're seeing my face here. I mean, I'm not saying you have to have your face there, but this is who I'm about. This is me. Me holding like a Bjorn baby carrier, right? Like I know that brand name, like it's crazy. And my baby's in it, and a lot of people see this and they say, wow, I can connect with that, or I'm a parent, or this guy cares. This is the first impression I'm trying to leave on my audience. And my buddy Chris Ducker from chrisducker.com said best, in today's economy, you have to completely forget about B2B, business to business, or B2C, business to customer. Really, what's working today is P2P, person-to-person relationship. That's why big, giant companies are now on social media because they can have these one-on-one conversations with their audience and they feel more real. It feels more personal. Gary Vaynerchuk talks about this a lot. He calls it small-town rules. What social media is doing is it's bringing us more connected, like we were back in the day when we were all living in a small town and we all knew each other. When you would do business with Bob, the hardware guy, even though his stuff is a little bit more expensive, you would go to Bob's store and buy from him because you knew Bob and you had a relationship with him. That's what social media is doing, and that's what you have to focus on, and that's the first impression you want to have. Especially in the personal finance niche, when you're talking about people's finances, something so personal. Are you going to make a bigger impact if you just hide a little bit? Or if you share a little bit of who you are, because you can then connect with people in these different ways? I experienced this really well when I had my first, or I still have this business, but when I was first launching this business, this is greenexamacademy.com, I was selling a study guide to help people pass the LEAD exam. And I was making, the time frame is late 2008, early 2009, I was making $20,000 to $30,000 a month selling an ebook, helping people pass this exam. Well, what happened was the organization that actually administers the exam, they decided to create their own study guide. And I thought I was doomed. Why would anybody buy from Pat Flynn, who didn't even get a perfect score on the exam, when the actual organization that writes the questions has their own study guide? I thought I was doomed. But this is what happened. My sales, when they came out with their guide, went up. I didn't understand it one bit until I realized that what they did was they sent a mass email to everyone announcing the study guide. And what did people do? They shopped around, and that's when they found me. My guide was a little bit cheaper because I didn't have as much overhead as they did. But more importantly, they saw that it was Pat and his experience with this exam, and they could relate to that. They couldn't relate to the people who were putting us on this exam. They didn't know anybody's name. So they were more happy to buy from Pat than the United States Green Building Council. And I knew this because all the emails I got, and even the handwritten thank you letters I got from people, they all started the same. Thank you, Pat. Thanks, Pat. Dear Pat. Pat, Pat, Pat. And right here on the front page is a picture of me and talking about why I created the site for them. This is why I'm Smart Passive Income, and like JD was talking about earlier, like I am a marching band nerd. That's who I am. I'm not going to hide that. And guess what? I have a minor marching band contingency on Smart Passive Income because I talk about this. A lot of people in my audience know I'm deathly afraid of spiders. If there's a spider in the house, my wife takes care of it. I go in the other room. I can beatbox the intro to Choo Choo Soul on Disney. I have an excuse. I have 2 kids. But I like it. And I'm a huge Back to the Future fan. I like it so much, I take professional photography in front of my memorabilia. How weird is that? That's so weird. But that's who I am. And you know what? People who like Back to the Future, or who have kids, or who also fear spiders, or who are in marching band, and even if they're not, they see who the real me is, and they can connect with me. I mean, how many of you have ever been in a conversation with someone brand new, and they say something that connects with you right away, like, yeah, I went to Duke University. You went to Duke University? I went to Duke University. What year were you? 81. Really? 82. Sweet. Maybe we had lunch together in the quad or something. Like, instant connection. That's what the imagery and showing your personality does with your audience. And, it's a competitive world out there. But that's how you stand out of the crowd. Okay, so next let's talk about, this is a quick tip, but it does have to do with it does have to do with first impression. This is your 404 page. 404 page is what people land on when the URL is wrong. There's an error. The page is not found. And a lot of times what happens is it's not even your fault. I mean, a lot of you always link to each other, which is great, but we aren't 100% perfect at typing, and we might misspell something, or a page might go away. And what happens when people go to your website, even though it's not your fault, their first impression is, oh, dead end. Bye. I mean, Google has it wrong. This is Google's 404 page. Why don't they put a search bar here? I have no idea. So what do? Well, you optimize your 404 page. It doesn't have to be the end of the road. It could be the beginning into a new path. Oh, sorry, the page you were looking for isn't here, but here are 3 pieces of my best content to help you get started. Or better yet, here is my getting started page. Awesome. Or I know a lot of people who are now putting actually opt-in forms for their email list on their 404 page. And I talked to a few people recently who had done this, and their opt-ins increased, and they're tracking it, and they know it's coming from this page, and they're scared because it confirms that people are actually visiting your 404 page. So take advantage of that. Don't lose out on those readers. It's a really easy fix. And if you don't know how to do it yourself, ask for a favor or hire somebody on Elance or Odesk or whatever. Now, when you go into a new hotel, and you swipe your card and you go into your room and you're like, wow, this is beautiful. And then you go into the bathroom, there's this little tag that you see there next to the towel rack. What does this tag typically say? Anybody? Care about the environment. Please reuse your towels. Correct. Well, a study was done by a man named Robert Cialdini. And he wanted to split test to see, what would make people actually do this. And he tested different forms of copy or text on these tags to see which one would have a higher conversion rate. So here's what the study was. The first one said, help the environment, please reuse your towels. The second one, to the same number of people in this hotel, was join your fellow guests in helping to save the environment, please reuse your towels. And the third one said, 75% of the guests who stayed in this room used their towels more than once, please reuse your towels. I think you might have an idea of which one converted the highest, but let's see the numbers. The first one converted at 33%. The second one, join your fellow guests, converted 44%. And the third one, 75% of the guests who stayed in this room used their towels more than once. Please reuse your towels, 50%. Why? What's going on here? Social proof. That's right. See, we as humans have a herd mentality, meaning we often look to the group for how to behave or what's the right answer. For example, you may have been in a public place before, and all of a sudden you start to see a crowd form in one of the spaces, and you don't know what it is, but people are gathering, and you can't help but want to know what the heck is going on in there. So you go, and you add to it, and other people see you go, so it just builds. I have a friend named Jason Van Orden from Internet Business Mastery. He tells a great story talking about the power of social proof. He goes to farmers markets all the time, and they have like food trucks there and things like that. He wants to always go where the best food is. Like he wants to go to the best food truck. And how does he determine that? He goes to the truck that has the longest line, because there's a reason people are in line. So how can we use social proof to work for us on our websites? Well, you want to share things that show that there's people using your site and that there's groups of people there, so people, when they arrive there, they instantly feel like they're doing what everyone else is doing. So you could do things like share your subscriber count, or the number of comments you have on your post, and really highlight those things, the number of subscribers to your email list, the number of downloads for anything you might give away, the number of customers you have if you have a business. If you go to basecamp.com, if you go to the homepage, you'll see right there they say, last week, 6,823 companies signed up for Basecamp. Big, bold letters. These are the guys from 37 Signals. I mean, social proof works. Use it. However, I must say, well, there are other types of social proof like testimonials from actual users, and also what I showed you in Mr. Money Mustache's site, like as seen on NPR, MSN, and all those other things. Those are other forms of social proof. But I have to warn you, social proof can also work against you. Like if I were to say, yeah, welcome to my website, I had one customer last week, or last month. That wouldn't really leave a good first impression. So you want to be smart, and when you're starting out, you might have less opportunity to use social proof. But you have to be wise, and when you get to a point where you see there's a group forming and a community forming, you want to share that information so people understand that they're in the right place, because everyone else is there too. Now, another interesting thing about first impressions is, especially in the online world we live in and how connected we are with social proof, or social media, a lot of times first impressions about us are made even before really the first time you meet someone. How many of you remember receiving a tweet from me in the last 2 weeks, week and a half? Great, thank you. I sent a tweet to each and every one of you, actually all of you who had a Twitter handle. And I said, can't wait to meet you, I'm excited. And it's true. I used a tool called Buffer App to automatically do that. I spent an hour basically predetermining what I was going to write and who I was going to tag, and it sent them out sequentially in certain times. So that's a great tool, Buffer App. So an hour to warm you up a little bit. Yes, if someone asks you, when was the first time you saw Pat? And you probably see, if it's the first time you met me, you probably say, oh, well, on stage at FinCon. But actually, I pinged you a little bit earlier on Twitter to just warm you up a little bit. So if you're going to send a cold email to someone, for example, find their Twitter handle and just hit them up on Twitter and say, maybe share one of their pieces of content or something, that's going to warm it up a little bit. And that email isn't so cold anymore. They might recognize you from Twitter, and you're starting that conversation beforehand. Now, also, what happens is, we all share each other's stuff, and a lot of times the first impression people have about you is what other people say about you. For example, how many of you know a woman named Jamie Tardy? Okay, not all of you. But now you're going to get to know her because of what I'm going to say. She's one of the nicest, kindest people I know. She has a site at eventualmillionaire.com. She interviews millionaires. She's interviewed almost over 70, or probably closer to 100 now. How many? 120 interviews with millionaires. She shares these interviews, and she pulls out the best information for us so we can understand how to potentially become a millionaire too. Great site. You might see her walking around in crutches. That's Jamie Tardy. Now, if you've never met her before, you already have a first impression of her because of what I said. And when you meet her for the first time, if you do this week, you will get another first impression with her, but I kind of warmed you up to her. So the idea here is it's really important to do two things. One, write amazing content or have amazing content in your site that people will want to share. If you write amazing content, people are going to share it, and I know a lot of you do that already, and people will say nice things about you, and you'll be able to put yourself in front of an audience that you wouldn't have been able to get in front of otherwise. So write great content. But secondly, it's really important to make connections within your own space as well and build those relationships. And that's when even more sharing and all that stuff happens. So to finish up here, I don't even know how much time we have, but we're good? Okay. There's a couple things I want to mention. These two quotes that I'm about to share with you changed my perception on first impression and also how I conduct my business and what I do and how I do things. So to close up, about 2 minutes left, the first quote I want to share with you comes from a man named James Schramko. He said, "Stop trying to be so interesting and start being interested." When you start to show that you're interested in what your audience is feeling or what they're doing or what they're going through, or if you're talking to your peers and you actually care about what they're doing, they're going to care about you too. The more you give, the more you get back. And it's when you start to try and be too interesting that you're actually turning people off. But when people see that you care, that's when you can get in deeper relationships with them. And lastly, you need to be yourself. Nobody is like you. Nobody is like you. So you're searching and fishing for how to stand out of the crowd. Share a little bit of yourself. But not just yourself, especially when you're making first impressions, but you want to be your best self. What is it about you that nobody else can do or nobody else has? What are your strengths and your strong qualities that you could share and show up front? Because that's how you're going to get people deeper in connection with you. So to finish up here, in the last 7 seconds of this presentation, I just want to say thank you so much for having me. I hope I've made a great first impression on you. Thank you so much. I appreciate you. Let's have a good FinCon.
Thanks, Pat. That was outstanding.
Hey, thank you for listening all the way through the presentation. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have a chance, please leave a comment below. I'd love to hear what you think. And also head on over to smartpassiveincome.com, and I'd love to see you on the blog. Thanks so much. I hope you subscribe to the YouTube channel. I appreciate you. I'll see you in a little bit. Peace.